Brought to you by Telos, solutions that empower and protect the enterprise.
Welcome back to this special program, Security in the Cloud, Government Innovations. I'm your host, Francis Rose. Moving IT infrastructure to a private sector cloud creates a model of shared responsibility. It can relieve an agency's operational burden, but that transition also requires a renewed focus on cybersecurity and IT risk management. Let's pick things up there with John Wood, Chairman and CEO of Telos Corporation. John, thanks very much for joining me once again. What does the landscape look like for agencies now from a cybersecurity perspective, and how is that landscape changing on an ongoing basis?
So really happy to be here today again with you, Francis. I think the main thing is, we've been watching the Verizon data breach report. This is their 11th year. The 2018 report's just out. And what we see is the sheer amount of phishing attacks that are going on out there. Now, earlier in this segment, one of the guests was talking about the need to protect identities. And I think a key way to be able to do that is making sure that at our agency level, we're using more things like multi-factor authentication, because in the end, those data breaches will continue. Having things like multi-factor authentication really stymies the competitive threat.
You really only need one person in your organization to give away credentials to really mess things up for the entire operation. And we've seen from these phishing attacks that in many cases they're a lot more successful than one, a lot more people than one give up their credentials. What makes that work on the other side so that whatever somebody can obtain through a phishing attack is not all they need to get into a network or to access the wrong kinds of information?
So there are 2 points there. First and foremost, people need to employ training strategies internally, because phishing is just going to get bigger and bigger. But the second point is, when you have multi-factor authentication, even if someone's given up their credential, you need something else to indicate that you actually are who you say you are. That something else might be an alarm on your iPhone, as an example. So there is a very simple set of tools that are out there that people can use to defeat that threat.
And I've found, even in my personal life, that as time goes on, they get easier and easier to use. I tried to log into my bank's website today from my computer here at the station, and it's not a place that I normally do that. And it was just as simple a matter as receiving a text on the cell phone that I have, which is on file with my bank, and I was able to do what I wanted to do. That's not information that would be easily obtainable by somebody who phished me, even if I did give them other stuff, right?
Absolutely correct. That is exactly why multi-factor authentication is working as well as it does. And again, it's not hard to implement, and it's not very expensive to implement, but it is very effective.
One of the key tenets of the NIST cybersecurity framework is a risk management approach. What does that mean in 2018, and how has that kind of vision changed over the years?
So when the president signed the cybersecurity executive order mandating the NIST cybersecurity framework, what it did for all the security professionals out there was it gave a common language within which people can work within. It provided also a common set of controls, so that as the earlier guest discussed, needing to have a rigorous set of common controls is very, very important from a security risk management perspective. And then applying automation to make sure that security and automation and compliance activity does not interfere with the mission owner's activities.
We have about a minute and a half left, and I'm curious, you talked about the phishing explosion earlier in our conversation, and I'm wondering if there was a way to have anticipated that, not just simply for looking back and contemplating what's already happened, but how thinking about what the next big challenge that we talk about a year or from now, or 2 years from now, or 5 years from now might be in order to protect networks better.
Yep.
In anticipation of what the bad guys might try next.
So I think the holy grail from a security and compliance perspective is to move from a point in time as it relates to evidencing that you're providing the body of evidence that you're operating in a secure way, to what's called a rolling or a continuous authority to operate. That to me makes the evidence much more relevant to the operational security professional, and it makes it much more expedient for the mission owners to actually get to the cloud.
You mentioned the term continuous authority to operate. That sounds similar to a CDM or continuous diagnostics and mitigation strategy, but is probably not exactly the same, right?
Correct, sir. In the end, what this is it provides the operational security professional with near real-time updates as to how their underlying security posture is changing, which again keeps it fresh and makes it relevant. And that's why, in the end, it's the Holy Grail.
Final thought, what are the things that you will watch the most as all of this evolves in the coming weeks, months, years, to see which direction that you would like to help agencies go?
Well, first and foremost, every single agency is really pushing hard down this path. Whether you're talking about the Fed Civ side with the DHS, or you're talking about the Department of Defense, or you're talking about the IC with the C2S program. So in the end, I think I've seen for the first time at the administration level the support, at the legislative level the support, and most importantly, within each of the agencies, so we as taxpayers can feel protected.
John Wood, thanks very much as always.
Thank you, sir.